welcome back to the show. I am really delighted for you to meet Migs Govea, today's guest. But before we get into the conversation that I have with him, I want to speak to the actors and the non-actors listening right now. I know there's a lot of different types of creative people listening, and our conversations tend to skew toward the actor. But today, I think you're going to hear a lesson no matter what kind of creative you are. There is this thing that I did not come up with this term, but it's called terminal uniqueness. And let's see if you can diagnose yourself with this. And it is the belief that when you see someone else be successful, or you see someone else succeeding, or you hear about the way someone went about their career or a step that they took to get where they're going, we can write against ourselves some version of, yes, well, that will work for them and it will never work for me. Or I am so different that it is impossible that that path will work for me. Now, this is not to discredit anything like systemic racism and lack of representation. I just want to make sure that we also don't bring our own additional trauma to this conversation where I am so different that it is impossible for me to find success in any of the ways that other people have found it before me. And what I want to say to you is you are incredibly special and you're not special. And the reason why I say that is that when we make ourselves special, we start to exclude ourselves from what might be in front of us. And the reason why I bring that up today with the guest we have today is that Migs Govea, who is my guest, has a ton of credits behind him. He's been on TV for a while. I'm going to run through some of his experience in a minute. And it would be very easy to say to yourself, whether you're an actor, photographer, director, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, yes, well, they have that much success, so now this is why it works for them. And you're going to hear in Mig's story of moving to a new city, suddenly deciding he's going to stay there, and suddenly deciding he's going to reach out and try to get representation there. It's going to sound a little Cinderella story, but you're going to hear him share how much more intimately there was a wrestle going inside. How it isn't as black and white as, oh, you've got a bunch going on already, I'm glad to meet with you. And I think that that's the place where I want you to root yourself. Instead of making Migs so special that any of his success cannot also be yours, what if the invitation I make to you today, the encouragement I have for you today is to say, in Mig's story, there are places where I see myself. And he does not hold back. He really is vulnerable and honest with his experience. So I know that you're going to get that cuddle of intimacy where you can feel the same emotions that he experienced during the journey to find his ultimately great representation in Los Angeles. So to give you a little background on Migs, he is currently recurring as Nick Vargas on the CBS series FBI's Most Wanted. And let me run down some of his other credits because it's super exciting. He was on the Netflix series Inventing Anna, opposite of Julia Garner. And then he also appeared opposite Julia Garner again in the Sundance hit The Assistant, if you've seen that one. He's on HBO. He was on HBO's City on a Hill, NBC's Law and Order SVU, both with recurring roles. And his film credits include Motherless Brooklyn, opposite of Ed Norton, and Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's 8, opposite Anne Hathaway and Helena Bonham Carter. And just like most of the actors out there, he started in theater. He appeared on Broadway in the Roundabout Theater Company's production of A Man for All Seasons with the two-time Tony Award winner Frank Langella and Succession's Emmy Award winner Jeremy Strong. So certainly has all those fancy, exciting things going for him, and that he's worked really hard to accomplish. And you're going to hear him talk about, even in that kind of list or that resume, how there's so much more story behind each of those things than we might see on the outside. We might see this beautiful Maserati on the outside, and what Migs remembers is trying to get the screw on the nut on the bolt in the carburetor. I don't know how to build cars. You know what I'm saying. To give you a sense of his vibe, I want you to think like Antonio Banderas, Michael Shannon, Rami Malek, Jimmy Smits, and Javier Bardem all put into one package. And I just can't wait for you to see yourself in his story. All right, let's get to this. Thank you so much for being here today with me. I'm really glad to have you on the podcast. You all should know that this is our second attempt. We had some 5-alarm fire going on a minute ago. So this is the second time we're saying hi to each other. So thank you, Migs, for joining me for today for this conversation.
My pleasure. Hi again.
Great. Good to see you again. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is not just because of your incredible credits, which I think is you all heard in the bio, the people that Migs has worked with, but also because of the great realizations that you described to me that you had in your reaching out for representation and landing representation. So before I hear from you, I just want to share some numbers with everybody. So you reached out to a bunch of managers and agents in New York. Isn't that correct?
In LA and then secondarily in New York,
Right.
mostly
So
in
one of the
LA.
other, mostly in
Yeah,
LA. Great, great. Okay.
yeah,
And you had 20 meetings and 20 offers.
yeah,
And you had 76% open rate on the emails that you sent.
yeah. All of it.
And I love that. And you had 29
Yeah,
responses, which I just like the 29 responses, 9 of which were like, no, and not right now. And 20 of which were like, let's meet. And then eventually like, yes, I'd like to work with you. So
yeah.
first
I
of
think
all,
like, yeah, there
yeah.
was less actually. In retrospect, there was I think 5 of those responses were like an out of work response. So I think it was only like
Got it.
4. It was
Got
like
it. Great.
4 no's, not right no's. But yeah, something
Great.
like that.
But
Yeah, yeah.
looking at kind of like the math of this, it's you had an open rate of 76%, which is pretty incredible. And then to get 20 people get meetings. So tell us to get us like into the story of the background that you have and just share a little bit of the story of how you landed your new representation. Walk us through that just a little.
Okay, so I had been working in New York for over 10 years, just kind of like chipping away. I had had the same manager throughout that I got after like a showcase in my acting school that we just like put together, and he was great. And then I would do all those like showcases or whatever to meet whatever casting director, whatever, and that kind of paid off. And then the truth of it is, I started the program thinking like, all right, I want to get an agent in New York. I've got all this stuff behind me. Let me try to do that. And the truth is, I was like scared out of my mind a little bit to like reach out to these people, even though I know,
Wait,
like, yeah,
stop.
yeah,
Why
I
were you
know,
scared? So you have to, so here's what I'm making you stop. You have to sort of
yeah,
slow down time.
yeah,
Why,
yeah.
what were you scared of? Tell me what was the outcome you were
You know,
imagining or
you
what was going on?
you always, it's such a tricky thing to be an actor, and I know that I sound like I'm whatever, but like you're throwing these things out into a void, and you never hear. You hear a yes if you're lucky, or like we want to see you again, but you never hear anything else. So you just kind of
Mm,
like in your head sometimes you're like, is there something I don't know? I don't know, whatever. And also it's that's kind of secondary, but primarily I'm like, I don't want to like annoy these people by like coldly reaching out to them and being
yeah.
like, hey, I'm this guy that you should know.
I just love,
Uh,
wait, can I just ever, I'm sure you're not the first person who ever had that thought of like being annoying. I think it's such a curious one because it would be
yeah,
like, I love how you're protecting these strangers' feelings of
I
annoyance
know,
by like, it's like the weirdest, most, and
I
it's like,
know.
there's some like, I'm being kind by not reaching out. Like it's a fault,
Yeah,
like it's truly, I don't think that it's, I believe it's the opposite because I think you're taking away the dignity of someone being able to say, I'd like to work with you. But we
yeah,
can pervert ourselves and pervert our thinking to just engineer small risk because it's
yeah,
vulnerable to put yourself out there,
totally, totally.
right? Yeah.
Um, and my situation was odd because so I had been kind of sitting on this for like 6 months. I'd gone through I was set, I was set to
Yep.
do it. I was like, all right, here we go. I'm gonna do it. I was like, I had my like all my stuff. I did all my homework, and then I just didn't do it, you know.
Mm.
And then I had a breakup, which we don't need to talk about. And but then after the breakup, I was you know like I moved out. I was looking for a new apartment, and that was the month that New York went bananas. Like everything went
Mm.
from like all the rents went up 35% that month,
Got it. Got it.
just like across the board. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just look at this later. My friend lives out here in LA, and he was like, hey, just come spend. He has a house in the Hollywood Hills. He's like, come hang out with me for a few weeks.
Who says no to that? Who says
Yeah,
no
who
to
says no to that? Yeah,
that?
so I'm
Right.
like, great. I'm getting over this breakup. I'm gonna come out there. And then I came out here, and I was here for 2 days or so before I started to feel like I needed to be productive, you know.
Yeah.
So I got up all my materials, and then I just went through all of the people in LA.
Yeah.
Just started like making a list,
Yeah.
and it happened very quickly. Like in a matter of like, I think I took like 7 hours of just like going through like all the emails or whatever, and getting and finding and setting them up and whatever. And that was I just kind of like was on this track, and I think it weirdly helped me that I was kind of diminished a little bit energy wise by the breakup, because I didn't have the
Mm.
energy to be nervous or to be intimidated by these people. I
Mm.
was just like,
Yeah.
ah, whatever. I'm going to just send these things out. what do I have to lose? I don't know anybody in LA. And it was primarily to send to like managers and agents in LA. I've never been out here.
Got it.
All of my work had been in New York, and I'm like, screw it. What's the worst that could happen? So
Yeah.
I sent off. I set the list of like, I don't know, 500-ish people between New York or
Hmm.
between LA primarily and some in New York.
Oh, so you
And
did a little bit of a mix and match
I
on
did
that.
a little bit of a
Cool.
mix, yeah,
Great. Okay.
because
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever, like
Yeah.
who knows? And I remember sending that first day. You send the email, and then like you see that the numbers start to go up on this, the mail merge program, and you start to see that they're clicking or whatever. And then I was just like, I'm gonna turn this computer off. And I'm just gonna like go for a walk.
Right.
And I left.
So
Yeah, I
yeah.
just
So wait,
walked
I want to
through.
slow you down for 1 second because I want to
Yeah,
make sure everybody's tracking some of this. So I want to make everybody, there's a couple things you said that I thought were so powerful, which is you got all your shit together and then you're like, and now I'm backing off. I had a breakup. I wasn't ready to send. I just kind of like,
yeah,
so what, so, obviously y'all were talking about my program agent goals, but the reason I wanted to bring Migs on to talk on this is sure, y'all can go watch makeagentswantyou.com and watch the free training, but I wanted you to hear just how no matter what program or format you're using, the same stuff kind of comes up. Like you can be right at the the starting line and like you're like, oh, and then all the resistance come back up again, or life comes up and says now is not the time for you to send, which is what it sounded like actually happened for you in some ways.
totally.
Then you got to
Um,
LA, and so you kind of had like I'm gonna timeline this a little bit, is that when you came to LA,
yeah,
like you had things in place where you could click send.
for
And
sure.
then
I
I
mean,
love you were a
yeah,
little bit of a rebel. I love that you were a rebel because like, I give
yeah,
you the list for LA and you're like, I'm going to go through the list a little bit. And I love that you took the time to do that for yourself because
yeah,
I'm very much not a fan of target lists, but that doesn't mean you can't decide I'm going to leave some people off or whatever without going down a hole, which it sounds like you just spent 7 hours. So good on you. I want everyone who's listening to know
yeah,
that you don't have to do that. But I thought it
yeah,
was that was what was going to be the right vibe or the way to go through that for you. So I think that's important
yeah,
to just note.
yeah.
And then
And I sure.
yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
well, the one thing that you
Sorry.
just said I think is so important is when you click send, you can see people opening or clicking, and you were like, "I'm going to walk away." Like, can you? So you're right there. So tell me, take us back to that moment when you were like, "Okay, I'm going to take a walk."
Yeah, I clicked it, and then it was almost like I was on some sort of like autopilot. Like I was just, if I was back in New York in my kind of like regular surroundings, that process could have taken me. I mean, it had been 6 months and I hadn't done it. It could have taken me weeks and weeks and weeks, but there was something about being here, and I was like, I can be whoever I want right now. Like I could just do this. I could be the person that does this right now, and I'm just gonna do it. And I did it, and I sent it out, and then I saw it start to pop, and then it was like, oh wow, I just hit send. Like that's real. Like those things are out there in the world. And they're like, and like within seconds, I saw like clicks happening. I was like, and I just kind of thought, I don't know what I thought. I thought it would take like a long time. So I just kind of like closed the computer. I'm like, all right, I'm in the Hollywood Hills, which is the weirdest. It was just some weird fever dream kind of thing. And I was like, I'm gonna just go for a walk to the Hollywood sign. And I just walked around. This is like none of this was my life. I was living in an apartment in Bed-Stuy, like 3 weeks earlier. And then I came back. I don't think I even brought my phone with me, to be honest. I was just like, I'm gonna just step away from this thing. And then I came back, and there were emails there already, being like, hey, I'd like to talk to you. I got like one. I think on the first day, I got like the loveliest response that was like a no, but it was like, that's weirdly what set me forward, being like, oh, this is the right thing. Because it was this woman who's a manager here in LA, and she manages like uber famous people. I don't know what I was thinking, like sending her this thing, but she was just like, hey, I just want you to know, I think that all of your stuff is amazing. I'm not taking anybody right now, but I know you're going to do great things, and I'm so excited for you. And it was just like, and then it turned out that she was, I had been doing this TV show in New York, and where I played like the lead of the show, her ex-husband, and she reps that actress. So I was like, oh, cool. I like. And we just started talking about that, and then we had like just like an email chain of just like a lovely conversation. And even though you had talked about this or whatever, and I understood it because I've been in the business so long, but it's just a person. It's just a person sitting at a computer that's like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. I'll like, cool. I'm just gonna watch this
Yeah.
thing or not. There also might have been people that were like, screw this, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
you know, um,
But not
and
attaching a story to it, I think, is the gift there of like a no
yeah,
means nothing, silence means that. That's part of what you took from the training, it sounds like. And also, like, one of the things I want to just grab onto is like, you want people to say no who are not
yeah,
your match. Like, please don't say yes to me and then not do a good job
totally,
for me for 4 years. And I just keep thinking it's me doing something wrong where like we were
totally,
just never a match. And I just see how you showed up, allowed her to say, you're great and I'm not the right person for you. Like that,
yeah,
right? You could have
yeah,
easily misled someone. You could have easily been like made yourself sound a little too fabulous or not
yeah,
enough, and then they would have been like, oh, I'm not even going to respond to that.
totally. And
Yeah,
like the thing that you think that you're gonna attach yourself to the no, um, but you don't. You kind of attach yourself to like, oh, I'm having this interaction with this person who's just like lovely, and
yeah,
like I'm sitting somewhere in LA, like in this crazy sun in January, and I'm getting to like talk
yeah,
to these people,
yeah,
and then that kind of set me on the path, and then every meeting from then on out was just like, cool, I get to meet somebody else in LA, you know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
was what fed all of the interviews because again I didn't have the energy to be like I didn't have the energy to like sell myself or to like try to do anything. I was just like it felt a little bit like I was kind of floating watching myself do it in a weird
Mm.
way. But like
Did you feel like that when your email had done most of the selling for you, like when you showed up, like they knew who you were, it was now a conversation of, are you who I really thought you were from your email? Like, I've already got who you
yeah,
are. Let me see if you're really making it. Because one of the things I'm noticing with a lot of people in the program is then they get to when they get to the room with the person or the Zoom room or the phone call or whatever it
yeah,
is, that they are like, the person knows who you are. So it's no longer a like, let me ask you a million questions. It's a little bit more like, let me verify my suspicions about what you provided me, the truth of them, and that who
for
I
sure.
really think you are. Is that what it felt like for you? Like this is like a
Yeah, I
verification
did it,
process?
I mean like kind of like subconsciously, yeah, because I was like, we the thing would come on in my brain. I knew that I didn't have to do that anymore. Like they had
Mhm.
a document that was just like, here are all the things that I've done. Here's some tape of me doing those things. Here's
Right.
a link to my IMDb page. None of this is a lie. We don't have to talk about this. I mean, we
Right.
can if you want to. So they would pop up. Most of the meetings were over Zoom like this.
Okay.
So they'd
Great.
pop up. And again, I was just in this weird kind of headspace. And I'd be like, oh my God, is that a dog? And then we would just talk about like their dog for like 15
Great.
minutes. And then organically, you'd just kind of start talking about like, your work,
Right.
or like
Right.
what you want. And it was just two people having like a conversation. And it was like, I was interested in them like authentically because I've never talked to an agent in LA or a
Right.
manager in LA for that matter. So I was like, I want to see what these people, you know, I,
Right. What would your
I don't
old
know.
relationship with that be like? What would the old Migs have shown up in a meeting like? What do you think?
I think it would have been like, you know, eh, maybe not like of the last 2 or 3 years, but I think the old Migs would have been like, let me show these people that I know what I'm doing. Let me look like whatever. I had the same. I just I I would have just been like, let me make sure that every like hair is in place, that every like the t-shirt is like whatever I'm wearing, like it was. And I had like this denim shirt that I had. Again, I was in a suitcase with like
Right.
a carry-on,
Right.
so I had like a jean shirt, and I wore it for the first
That was your
meeting, and it went
uniform?
well.
That was your
Yeah, and
meeting
I was just
uniform?
like, cool, I'm just gonna wear this every day, you know.
Right.
And I thought, it would just be like, again, I was remarkably lucky with the amount of like interest that I got. So I was aware of that, but I was also just, the meeting would be at whatever 2 o'clock, and then I would pop on their IMDb page just to like refresh who they were, like for 5 or 10 minutes before, and then they'd
Yeah.
pop on, and
Great.
then
So
that
good.
was that was it. It was,
I love that.
but very, we didn't really talk about. I think I thought starting out. Let me say two things about that. I think starting out, I thought it would be a test where they would
Mm,
be like, uh, let me see if this guy has done his homework on me,
mm.
and B, like, let me see if this person has it. You have this kind of idea when you're
Yeah.
starting out of just like, oh, I have to show them that I have it. And like, nobody knows what the hell it is, if it even exists, you know, it's like, what is that? And it's, you're kind of like, um, so what I will say is that like, I did this as someone that's been working pretty steadily, luckily, knock on wood, but the, the fear and the trepidation that I had of like sending these managers and agents like emails and whatever is pretty much in some way the same fear that I would have had on day one as an actor, you know, because it's
Mm,
just like there's something about the unknown of it, and you think like, oh, I'll do X, Y, and Z like when I'm ready, you know, and like
mm,
I for sure, I firmly believe like this was the time for me. I you know like because there's like the gremlin in me that could be like, oh, you should have done this 8 years ago,
sure.
you
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
idiot,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But like that doesn't help you at all, you know. So I've
No.
just
And
been choose to believe like this happened right now because it was supposed to happen.
supposed to. I mean, that is
But
you're preaching. You're preaching to me, the choir, in that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
but 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 the flip side of that is like whatever fear people are having, if people are listening to this that are just starting out, like that fear is not going to go away, you know. So if you're like a worried about like you know the waiting for the right time, like there is no like right or wrong time, you know, like
Yeah.
when you do it is the right time, like whatever
Yeah.
that means, um,
What
because
I hear about this is like, I have this thing of there's this myth of being ready. I think your hand is just as sweaty when you click send as it is
oh my
where
god,
you are
yeah,
with as many credits as anybody has who's listening. And when you've got 2 credits on your resume, it's as many. Like
yeah,
you're just as scared because it is a version of putting yourself out there, and putting yourself out there is vulnerable. And so you're going to have that feeling. So any attempt to feel ready is an attempt to armor up. Like I'll just say, like, sometimes one of the places where actors, I
yeah,
notice this a lot inside of this program, and you may, I think we had a conversation about some of your scenes at one point in this process, but a lot of times an actor will be very stuck on choosing the exact perfect material to put in front
yeah,
of the manager agent. And I say, we can go there a little bit, but once we get into perfection land, just know that we're now in a space where we're just trying to control the outcome more than we're
totally,
choosing something that you love. And then
yeah,
it's not going to matter what it is at that point, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I had an acting teacher, like I took like I was, you know, during the pandemic, I was still trying to take, so I was taking like Zoom, TV, and film classes or whatever. And the teacher said like the most simple thing ever, but all of us in the class were just like, oh yeah. He was just like, this is supposed to be fun. You did this because it's supposed to be fun, and you forget you honestly forget that.
You
So then
yes.
and and you have to pull yourself back to that place because if you're trying to get the audition right, if you're trying to get the meeting right, if you're trying to get, you know, like it is kind of like the worst thing to watch or to like, you know, like to
Mm,
like when you watch a tape or like the things that I respond to at least as like a viewer of like TV, film, or movies is like when it feels like something's happening like right then, you know.
yeah.
And if you've
We
like
don't want perfection.
telegraphed, yeah, yeah, you've telegraphed the past like so long, it could be right. You're hitting every beat right. You're saying all the right things, but uh, you know, you're not present. Like you need to be
Yeah.
present with like
Right.
this person that you're talking to or whatever. And like, um, and yeah, there was something so valuable about like the run up to it, even though like I had put it on hold for like 6 months. It was that like to sit there and be like, who is the person that I want to talk to? What is like,
Mm,
what do I imagine them being? Like all of that. And then having kind of gratitude for like going through all of this had gave me gratitude for like me 5 years ago, me 7 years ago, like that guy that was just like, I don't know if I could do this, you know, I don't know if it's going to get me
yeah.
anywhere. And something in that guy that wanted to give up still kind of persevered and like pushed through, you know, and
Yeah.
like,
That's beautifully said.
and I felt as I was going through it all, I felt like weirdly, you know, because I have a very like son of immigrant, like working class mentality where you have to work, you have to prove yourself, you have to like, you know, and it was kind of like a sea change moment to just be like, let me just be grateful for that guy that I was, even at my low points, that was still just like, when like a year or 2 years or 3 years had gone by that I hadn't gotten any acting work, that, you know, that guy still persevered, and like,
Yeah, and
and
I think Migs, one of the things you're saying is, I think it's important to always collect. You are planting the seeds today for tomorrow. And we
totally,
usually are able to look back and see where we did great things, but in the moment we forget that the actions we're taking right now are literally going to help provide for what's next for us, create the launching pad, the springboard, whatever you want to believe. And so,
totally,
and even though you took a minute, you took a breath from, before you clicked send, like you had laid all these tracks to be able to get to LA and be like, I'm in a literally or carry on right now. And I'm going to reach out
yeah,
to agents and managers in this other city where I don't even know if I'm going to live here yet, which
yeah,
is, you didn't like it. That, so when this all came to be, that is when you decided, hey, LA is my place. After that, is that basically how that
yeah,
all worked
yeah.
out?
I mean, it like basically, yeah. I met like this. I talked to a lot of people, and like very quickly, it became clear who I clicked with the most, and people that I felt
You're
like
talking
seeing
manager. We
by.
say people, you actually mean, I
Yeah,
mean
sorry,
managers or
managers.
people.
I meant
Yeah, yeah,
managers, or like,
yeah,
yeah, sorry.
yeah.
But that like managers that I was responding to, and they were responding to me, and they were excited, and they were just like, and it was weirdly like the people, luckily, like the people that emerged as like my top 3 or 4 from a personality and a like a chemistry standpoint,
Yeah.
and like their work ethic and their reach, like it ended up being like the 3, luckily, like people that I would have chosen to work with just off like their
Paper.
credits. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah,
Right. So one of the things I want to make sure we hear right now, which I think is so important, is I want everyone listening to just think about 20 people saying yes to you and then you having to make the decision
yeah,
can, in many cases, I think, plunge someone into like, analysis paralysis,
yeah,
desperation, not able, not, inability to see it as abundance and suddenly labeling it as a problem where, like you said a few minutes ago, this is supposed to be fun. Being
yeah,
wanted that much, I'll just say that like Sarah Utterback, which is someone who is kind of like in like the same level-ish of her career when she came on the podcast, she's saying a lot of the similar things that you did, which is really surprising to me today, actually,
yeah,
because she said it was very much about like joy, being like, I need to remember the joy inside of this. And that was
yeah,
so I really just want everyone to think about that moment of like, I'm in a city where I don't live. I'm living out of carry out. I'm not sure I'm going to live here yet. And I'm
yeah,
sending my email. Just like the part of why I'm saying that is I want to really dispel this myth of I will do it when I am ready or when
yeah.
the stars align or the perfect thing. Like, it's never going to be the perfect time to move and it's never going to be the perfect time to have a baby. I mean, those are the two things
No.
that I always
Yeah,
say. Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So like, and so I think I think it's beautifully encapsulated the way that you described it. I'm so glad that you ended up with like a great match, is what I'm hearing you say.
yeah. Me too. Yeah, and like, um, yeah, and as someone who doesn't know, I had just gone through a breakup, and that was hard enough, and now
Yeah.
I have to like break up in essence with 19 people that I like. I mean,
Well, at
like it
least it's
was a
only a
weird.
first date. It's only been a first date,
Yeah,
at least.
yeah,
Yeah, but still,
totally.
yeah.
But it was. Um, I I would not have guessed in a million years. Like credits aside, I like maybe like externally it seems like, oh, obviously this guy's gonna get this, but like when you're in it and you know how hard you've worked to get all of those things, as someone that didn't
Mm-hmm.
know anybody, didn't like, I'm like the black sheep in my family as far as like everybody did, you know, a blue collar thing, and I'm here trying to be an actor, which is just a crazy thing to do,
Yeah,
so like, all of the credits that I had gotten, none of them were like just an overnight thing or a fluke. It was just like
sure.
I tried really hard to get like, I met that casting director at like a one-on-one like paid seminar, and then somehow they'd call me in, and then like 7 auditions later I'd get the part,
Right.
or like, so it wasn't like, and there was also like a gift to kind of come to a new city and start in effect from scratch. Like nobody knows me
Mm,
here.
mm.
But to it's kind of an amazing experience to get to start as like, to start from scratch without the kind of like blind kind of like fear that I had like in New York, like
Yeah.
when I was first starting out, of just like, it was just like, I didn't even know what acting school to go to. And it was just like one friend told me to go to this school and I went to that school and then I was like, oh, this is no good. And then I went to another school. It was just like things kind of, but like to be able to start clear, to start kind of from the bottom, but with all of this experience behind me has been like such an interesting thing to like feel, to experience,
Yeah. I mean,
like
what I'm
it's
hearing
just,
you say, you can correct me here, Migs. I'm going to cut you off here because I want to make sure we don't miss this. But
yeah,
I think most people would be like, I can't start over in another city. But
yeah,
what I see you taking away is a couple things here. We always live in the drudgery of it took me this much to get that gig. It took me this much to get that
totally.
job, right? And so when you're in a meeting, they have no idea how much you worked to get some of these credits. And for you,
Yeah,
you're like, I'm still thinking about how hard it was to get that, where you're like, this is
yeah,
amazing or whatever, right? Like, so,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So you're almost not in the celebration that they might be or the excitement or whatever it is. And the second
yeah,
piece of this is there's something I really think anybody who's thinking about going to another market, I want you to really think about the fact that I think there's a few times in someone's career where you are, I think, a sexy thing to like be attractive to managers and agents. I think you can always get a manager or agent based on the experience I've had inside of this program. That being said,
totally.
I think there's a
Yeah,
couple times when you can kind of lean in. One is like you're new to town, you just got out of school, you just booked something big. Those are the three you can kind of rely on, I think.
totally. Yeah,
But I think that when you're new to town and you're willing to say, and I don't know anybody here and I'm completely new. And I'm sure in your meetings that you'd have, yeah, nobody knows me yet. Like the cast directors don't know me here yet. Like I am not a known quantity. And if you didn't say that, or you made it sound like, I know this person, like you either faked it or made it sound like everything was okay, then that person wouldn't know what their job is. Cause the job of the new manager or agent is to get you those connections in the new city.
yeah,
Cause otherwise I feel like you're like saying, I don't even need you. If you were like, and I've already got my connections all set up in LA and I went to a million workshops and da, 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 like, it's actually not
no,
acknowledging where you are. So I think
yeah.
that's powerful.
What fell out of my mouth was, some of them will ask you questions. Some of them, a lot of them, I think, were already like, I'm on board. Um, but
Yay.
some of
Wait,
them,
can
like,
everybody wait. I
yeah,
want everyone, sorry, we can't run that by because I
yeah,
want everyone to just imagine for a second what it would feel like to go into a room or a Zoom room and know that they're already on board because you've presented yourself so well. That is
yeah,
not how I think most of us think. Most actors are thinking about that meeting. They're thinking about the meeting as, okay, I got into the club. Now I need to prove that I belong in this club and I'm allowed to stay here when I meet the bouncer at the door, which is the manager agent. So like, hey, my ID got me in. Can I stay? Are you going to throw me out of the club like that?
yeah,
So that, and
yeah,
that is not the experience you had. I just want to make sure everyone who's listening just thinks about how differently that approach would feel just to you as an actor, the wantedness, feeling wanted in that way.
yeah.
So yeah.
And and they're just people. They don't know. They're not infallible, kind of like hyper like robot. They're just like somebody that like got into like management or agent for any myriad of reasons, and they're just
Right.
doing their best, and like they respond to something in you, whether it be your picture or your resume or the self tape you sent. Like they're calling you, um, because there's something about you that they like, and they think that they can make money off you.
Well,
Like
yeah. Yeah.
like like they're not calling you out of like the goodness of their hearts, or to be like, let me see if they surprise me and like make
Oh,
me
or like, I've
like,
got 4 extra hours to do a bunch of meetings this week. I'm going to meet with some random ass actors just
totally,
because I've
totally,
got, right. Yeah.
yeah,
One of the things I
and
heard you just say that I think is cool is I think of most actors, when we think about a callback, is like, we're already in at the callback. We're just trying to make sure you're the one who the story looks the best on. And like,
yeah, yeah,
almost like an agent meeting being like a callback where we're like, we're just making sure that you're like fit what I thought you would be doing if you
totally,
were on my roster. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I love that.
And well, to the question of like, what, who do you know out here? I Again, I was in a weird frame of mind because I was just tired and I was just whatever. But I was also excited, to be
Mm.
out here, and excited kind of like about myself. So
Yeah.
they asked me, the first person asked me that question, like what fell out of my mouth was, I'm like, I don't know anybody. And like, you get to
Yes.
be the person that like introduces me to them. Like, how awesome is that? And I
Everybody
genuinely
write
believed it.
that down. Write that
Like,
down. That is the
I,
best, most awesome response in the world. Like that's so, and Migs, I bet in that moment you felt really empowered saying it.
yeah, I genuinely believed it. I was
Yeah.
like, I've I've worked damn hard to get all of these things, and I know, I've had years and years of just being like, do I not know what I'm doing? And now it's like you're never going to know fully what you're doing. There's always something to learn, but like I I know what kind of a actor I am, or an employee I am, or like
Yeah.
someone, like I know how to be in a room. I know whatever, and it's like get me in that room. Like
Yeah.
this is great. Like you get to do your job so that I can do my job.
Right.
Like
Right. And
you
that
should
conversation doesn't
like
happen when I believe when you are scrambling for your worthiness inside of a meeting, a
yeah,
manager or agent can go, this person, I don't feel like they're an authority on themselves. And so now how can I put them in a room with
totally.
Allison Jones, where I've worked really hard to have a great relationship with this casting director, and I know what it's like when they're saying it. Like, how can I, if they're not authority on themselves, how can I feel like I'm an authority on them? So that
Yeah,
scramble
yeah,
wasn't there for you. You weren't scrambling. You're like, this is where I am. This is
totally,
and I
totally.
love the idea. You're like, I'm in another city, so I kind of feel free. I want everyone to just
Yeah,
notice that mindset, because I remember I was when I was acting, I remember an acting teacher said, sometimes when you're sick, some of your best acting happens because some
every
part of
time.
your brain is out of the way and you're not
Yeah,
able, and like, it reminds me of that. Like I was in a new city. I was like, what the heck? I'm in vacation mind, right? Which is a
yeah,
mindset we
yeah,
could take on no matter where we are in a
yeah.
given. I'm not telling everyone you have to move to another city in order to find managers or agents. Let's
No,
not have
yeah.
that be right,
You don't
right.
have to get a breakup. You don't have to do that. But yeah, this was
But
my
the
experience.
freedom you felt there is
Yeah,
so, I think,
totally.
important. If you were to identify one specific part of agent goals that helped you the very most, what would you say it would be, and why?
Um, I think there was two things. It was uh, when it was the one exercise when you were like, imagine who this agent or manager would be,
One
like
of my
who,
favorites.
what, yeah, and um, that was fun because it was just like, yeah, I want a person that's like, you know, really excited about me and excited about the business and like into like they're like artistic and creative in their own way, and and they know how to talk to people and they know how to get you in rooms and like whatever, but like and that's kind of invariably like five of the people I talked to like clicked all of those
Yeah.
boxes, and
Yeah.
it was just like, and I wouldn't be able, I remember, sorry, this is a tangent, but like when I was
Go for it.
starting out, um I had been acting for like 5 years or something at this point, and there was one, I had one audition. This was right when I changed my name from Miguel to Migs, because for acting purposes my name's Miguel, but like it was getting me weird kind of like pigeonholed at that point, and Migs was what people always called me. So it was like right around this weekend that I changed it, but I got an audition for a play, and it was, they sent me 29 pages of sides.
Oh my God.
It was 7 or 8 scenes or something, 9 scenes I think. It was insane, and it
It was
was like
every page in the play that you were on. It sounds like it was every.
yes, totally. And I'm not encouraging anybody to do this, but what happened was that it came in on a Thursday, and I was like, all right. Typically, the way that I was operating at that point was I'd get a script and I would learn the words. I was like, I have to learn all of these words, and you're not thinking about what the experience is, whatever. But I was just like, I'm just going to read the play. I read the play a couple of times. Friday came around. It was too daunting to go through all this stuff, so I just read the play a couple of times. Saturday, some friends came in town. I read the play a couple of times. I was like, I'll work on these auditions on Sunday, and then Sunday came around, and I couldn't like I just read the play a couple of times. And I was like, I'll just learn one of the scenes. Again, I'm not encouraging this,
Right.
but so Monday morning came around. My audition was like a 2, and I looked at all of the things. Again, I had read the play 7, 8,
Yeah.
8 times. Like,
You knew the story.
so
You knew what was
I
happening.
know
You
the
knew the word.
story. I
Yeah.
know what's
Yeah.
happening. I know who this guy is.
Right.
Um, but I was like, they're probably just going to ask for one scene, is my guess. I'm going to learn scene 2. So I
Right.
like learned scene 2, and then I tried to learn the other ones, and I didn't even like. I was like, I can't. And I remember going into that audition room, and I was sitting at it was I think it was Pat McCorkle, and I had never
Okay.
met her before.
Okay.
And I was sitting there, and I
I
remember
know Pat
sitting
really
there.
well, so this is a very exciting
Yeah,
story for me.
yeah,
This.
she's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I remember sitting in that room, and for the first time in my career, I could see the room. oh, there's a crack on that wall. Well, that's funny. Like this, everything went from like this to like this for whatever reason. I don't know what broke or whatever in me. And I walked in, and Pat was like, "Hey," she's like, "Migs, I like that." Well, I was like, "Thanks," whatever. And she's like, um, she goes, "Migs, we haven't." She's like, "We don't have time to go through all these." She's like, "Just pick one scene and we'll do that."
Ta-cha!
And I had memorized scene 2, and for some reason, out of my brain goes, "Let's do scene 6."
Oh my God.
I didn't know what scene 6 was. Like I don't know what happened. I hit like some weird like blip in the matrix, and I flipped a page into scene 6, and I have read the play a bunch of times, like, oh yeah, I know this scene.
Yeah.
And I kind of did it, kind of on book, kind of off book, and like, but I was just sitting there having the experience, listening to her,
Yeah.
and I wasn't worried about like getting that. I was like, I keep messing up the it's
Yeah.
in that, and I just said it. I was like, thank you, and she was like, wait, hold on a second, can you come back for like the callback? And I remember walking out of there completely confused. Like I was just like, have I been doing this backwards this entire time? And it's not about being unprepared. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying. It's just like I had hit this kind of like fuck it point of just like fuck it, I'm just gonna do the thing, I'm just gonna sit here. And it allowed me to be present and to listen to what was being said to me, not just like within the scene but without the scene, to like walk in there. And she was like, hey, I like you.
That we were talking about what things stuck with you from Agent Goals that was the most impactful, and this really connected to that for you somehow. Can you connect the dots for us?
I think that like what had happened in that room was that I just allowed myself to be me for the first time. Like, I know that I'm playing a character, but like, you know, you think like me acting is this, and like me acting is like, whatever. And it's like, no, this is just a guy like that I'm playing that's in this situation, and he feels this towards this person. And maybe this is obvious to everybody that's listening, and I had studied this and I understood it, but in a kind of like real sense, like, when people do Shakespeare and they're all like stiff and they're just like, they have to talk like this. Um, it's like suddenly I was like, well, what if I didn't do all of those things? What if I didn't try to be so pedantic about these lines? What if I didn't like, not that you like, what if I didn't try to get this right like it was a math test?
And so what I'm hearing you say is you kind of brought that mindset to the creation of like your email, of the creating it, like I'm not gonna sell this so hard. I'm gonna be clear. I'm gonna be present. I'm gonna. And is that kind of the thought? Is that what that thought is?
Yeah. And I had, setting that up and like writing, like the precursors to writing that letter. Once I had that all on paper, it was like, oh, there was no crack for like this kind of like insecurity to go to. It's like, no, man, you did the work. You've been doing this for a long time. You've had success. You are not some sort of like, it's not some sort of fluke, like you can trust. Like, I think it was just trust and faith and just kind of like letting go, and just allowing the essence of the thing to be what happened, which is like, I'm going to tell these people who I am with not the idea of who I think they want to hear from, but from me, like there was just like,
yeah. And what I want to be careful though, because I want everyone to just listen. You're making it sound so freaking simple, Migs. I want to slap you across the face because this is not a simple process. So let me just calm down.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be hard, but I want everyone to like, you don't just be like, I'm gonna zen out and just tell them what they need to know about me.
No,
I want to be really
that's
clear. So I want to
yeah.
make sure that the distinction we're making here is letting go of a perception of who they're who we think they are. You went through a really clear process where you were like, I understand who these people could be because I have an idea of what I would like the person who is my match to be. So knowing that they're a human being and not a robot, which you've said a few times here, right, is how would I write to them in a way that allows them to discover me without me putting all the curlicues and Baroque on every single corner of why they're supposed to love everything, but like actually explicitly. But where people, I think, make the mistake is we're afraid to name drop. We're afraid to talk about this network that it's been, and we're afraid to talk about our castability. We like leave things out because we're like, well, that's annoying to them because they're going to see I'm working too hard. And what we miss is no one's reading between the lines unless you tell us to read between the lines.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is, and so what happens is actors just can reduce themselves to their credits, which could be easy to do and can get people somewhere, but it's not going to
Yeah.
get you the kind of rep who like is in love with you. I believe they're going to
No,
love your
yeah.
credits. And I don't want someone
Yeah.
who's in love with your credits. I mean, that's where I come from at
Yeah.
least.
No, like that's exactly it. Is like they got a sense of not just what I've done, but like who I am from that letter,
Right.
you know? So then
Right.
when they met me and I didn't have the desire to put on any airs, and also like because of the work we've done and because of my like frame of mind at that moment, I didn't have the energy to like try to be anything but what I was, you know?
Yeah. And I wonder
And
what, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, no, that like I agree with you. It wasn't like some flash in the pan. This is like work and work and work and work and work. And I don't want to say it's all because I was going through a breakup and I was too tired. Like I like underneath that
Right.
was all the work that I'd done, all like the, you know, following like your lead and all of the lessons and like doing them well and like understanding what that meant to me and my experience and everything that like I brought to the table as an actor or just as a human being, you know?
Yeah. I think it
So
can
it
be
was
so,
like the culmination of all those things.
and I think one of the things I hear you saying also is it can be so easy to try to let our resume speak for itself. I put that in
Yeah,
quotes as I say it.
totally.
And there's so much that's absentee from that, which has to do with, like you said, we talked a little about the drudgery of trying to get those jobs and also the like delight of getting into that office for the first time and how those are things that reps care about that. That's what they're excited
Yeah,
about for their clients. And we just kind of don't give them the dignity of discovering that at times. And I think that's an important piece of what you're sharing inside of this journey. So you
yeah.
made the move all the way to LA.
I made a move
How's
all
it
the way to
going?
LA.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's like it's going well. It's a completely different animal. So I'm
Yeah.
still. I just officially. I was in here in January was when I sent out my emails. I was here for 2.5 months, and then I went to DC to do a play that was long since like in
Got
the
it.
works. Did that. Went back to New York for like 2 months, and I just moved in a month ago. So I'm like fresh to LA. But so far so good. I mean, the manager that I ended up signing with, he set up 8 meetings with agents.
Great.
So it's like so we signed with a commercial agent, we signed with an
We love
agent
that.
agent out
We
here.
love
It all
that.
just like it all happened, and like
Right.
again, he set up like these Zoom meetings and the Zoom meeting would come on and it was just like it's like the work was kind of done for you already. Like you've done the work for yourself by like introducing yourself to them through this kind of like letter and then he basically just forwarded what I gave him to
Wait,
these
that's the best
people.
part. I want everyone to hear that. Your shit
Yeah,
was so good that he could just forward what you've already put together to other reps, which is like, that is
it
what you
was
want. You
amazing.
want it to be such a good packet. Just as we're getting close to the end of this conversation, I want to make sure that I say this really loudly. Just thank you for bringing your honesty to this, both inside the program and also to this conversation, because my goal is that whether someone decides to do this program or not, anyone listening can see that there's a different approach to reaching out to reps. I think that
Yeah,
it's dysfunctional because oftentimes you'll hear like you need to do a ton of research on all the reps and know who you are when you're reaching out to them and da 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 da. And I'll be like, that information is all fake information that you literally Googled from. Everyone's Googling the same exact information. So you're getting no more
totally.
intel than anybody else. And so that
Yeah,
always feels like cool-ish advice, but not advice that actually allows you to show up in this process. I think it usually allows someone to get hidden behind a target list, which
yeah,
when you have, you can't get 20 offers when you had a target list of 8 people. I want to say
yeah.
that
No,
first of all,
that's
right?
for sure. Yeah,
So
yeah.
you may have already answered this. So if something new occurs to you, I just want to have you share this with me. What do you feel like you learned about yourself in this process?
I mean, I learned that I have something to offer, which is something weird to say, but like I, I for like all of my career, well, at least for the first 3 quarters of my career, let's say so far, I would get a job and I would get on set and I'd be like, thank you so much, thank you, and I just want to, thank you, and it was to the point that you're just like that they start to be like, did I make a mistake? Like, is this like some charity case that, they
Right.
picked
Got it.
you because you're the best person for that job.
Right.
Like, full stop. They didn't
Right.
pick you because they're like, oh, this guy looks like he needs a SAG card. Like they picked you because out of the 100 or more people that they saw, you were the person,
Right.
and to be able to step into that and own that and be like, yeah, I have something to offer here. Like between the work that I did on like understanding who I was as a person, but also like the work, like reviewing my own materials, and watching them kind of just like freshly or just kind of like as like being like, oh, does this offer this? And then, watching it, like there was like not just a sense of like pride, but a sense of just like confidence is like a weird, ugly word to me, like because it had these weird meanings in my own brain, like coming up, but like just kind of like certainty, like this is who I am. Like
Mm.
I'm going to be right for it or not, like when I started out, like you'd read the character description, be like good looking, whatever, and you'd be like, I have to make myself good looking, whatever. Like they're gonna think it or not, like whether or not you think, like whether or not whatever I did wasn't going to make them think it or not, like so there's to learn. I think it kind of gave me the ability to like let go of the things that I couldn't control and take
Mm.
ownership of the things that I could.
Well, that is so powerful too, because I think we think of, I can control if they think I'm good looking. I control if they think of that. Like we have a long list of the things we think, and like I can make my choices, make sure they know that I'm this, and so that we miss what I think we want to do. If we could say is, I don't want you to have a choice. I actually want you to just know that I am the thing, so you don't get to
Yeah.
have it. That's what we want. So then we don't give them the dignity of a choice. It's like it's a very weird dynamic or perversion that can be created inside of our brain.
And to not, you could be grateful, but like they're not calling you in to have this meeting and breaking up their day out of the kindness of their hearts.
Because you're not
They're
Oliver
doing it.
Twist. You're not on the street
Yeah,
begging for an acting job in this moment.
totally.
Right.
They're there because they believe in you, in your career, whether it be like, from like the dollar sign standpoint or from whatever your like, goal is, like they're there because they see something in you that they want to throw out in the world and that's going to give them a return,
Right.
not because, oh, I'm going to be nice and I'm going to give this kid a chance, like that's not,
That's
like,
not, this, not,
so
this is,
yeah. So you can be grateful for the meeting for sure, but like they're not doing you a favor.
right. I
They're
think what's
there.
important here is like gratitude is, we're not writing off gratitude. What we're saying is there's the like, oh my gosh, this was such a mistake. Thank you so much. How did you even I'm surprised you chose me. Like, oh my gosh, I don't even
Yeah.
belong in the room. Like it's keeping
Yeah.
yourself out of the room while you're even in the room in that moment.
Yeah.
That gratitude
Totally.
is not, that's not gratitude. That's perversion. That's dysfunction.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's gratitude towards
Know,
them and gratitude towards yourself, to like,
well, yeah, when you just said, I think
send
I want
this
to make,
out.
yeah, the part of that, what you just said, I think I want to, sorry, I talked on top of you, but what you just said is gratitude for yourself. Like one of the things, like the go into the room with your like the fuck it and who cares kind of movement is also, I think that meeting with that feeling of like unattached, the ability to feel unattached, I think also comes from feeling, I don't know if this worked for you this way, Migs, but a lot of people I think feel like I'm wanted right now. I don't have to like also bring something else to the room because something else isn't actually going to help me anymore because I'm wanted. Like this is all I have to offer. There's nothing else that I have to bring with me. So if this is what you want, then you should order this off the menu. And if you don't, then we should move on to the, second course.
You want to give them the full course of who you are, not like, I think this person likes, peas. I'm just going to show them the peas, like you don't know, like they might respond to you because you have a funny voice in their eyes or whatever. Like you don't, like they might respond to you for any myriad of reasons. Like what I've also found is the thing that as an actor, I think that like for me personally, there are things that start out and you're kind of just like, I don't want them to see this side of me. And those things end up being your like superpower.
Totally.
Those things end up being the things that like they respond to. So like Brad Pitt's already there. Like they already have like the people that have been cut out of stone. Like show them your humanity, like because whatever you present is the thing that if they want to work with you, you're going to have to keep that up. So it's most easy to like just be the person that you are,
And one of the things that you say there, Migs, is I remember there was a client who was, about to send out his emails, and he was saying like, I don't have that many credits. And so I'm just trying to make sure that it sounds like I've worked a lot. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Your lack of credits is why you need a representation. That's why they're going to work with you. So actually, what if we pivoted this, because the obstacle is the way in, and it was more like my credits don't match my training and experience. That's why I'm knocking on your door today. Like that. So owning whatever the biggest obstacle is, we want to so hide it. And let's also remember, we've also mixed this up with a ton of bad acting advice for actors. That's advice around the career that's like gets all mixed in there. So it then becomes like a stew of mishigas of how do I do this? And so let me get all my worst voices trying to lead me here. So I appreciate this was your experience. If there's one last thing you wanted to leave with anybody who is watching right now and, is in the same position you were in at the beginning of all of this, what would you want them to hear from you?
I mean, that they're enough. If this is an actor that's listening to them, you are enough. You are enough right now. You are more than enough. Like it took me so many years, and I'm still, I have days where I'm like, but like, you are enough. You are enough right now. Like that's what I would hope. That's what I would go back and tell myself, and that's what I would go back and tell anybody that's starting. I get that this is all scary. It's a crazy thing to do. Like being an actor is hard, but like don't make it harder by telling yourself that you're not enough. Always go to class, always keep learning as an actor, but the distillation of like who you are is enough right now and will always be.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'm going to say one thing because I think it's so important, is one of the things I see so beautifully happen when actors go through this process that you went through is the delusion of what the business needs an actor to be, and the delusion of who an actor thinks they are melts away. And a manager or agent wants to be with a non-delusional actor, an actor who gets where they are and gets what they play and gets what they offer, because then you get to have some freaking fun, which is what you said before. I know he's like, let's try something new for this role, or let's go that. I think you can stretch to like, then you get to be in that space instead of I'm afraid to mention this actor's age because they were afraid to tell me like anything about age range. Because then suddenly the manager agent is operating inside of your own limitings that you presented to them. So I just really appreciate that. So Migs, I'm sure there's going to be people who are going to be like, I want to watch this guy on TV, or I want to follow him. Or is there a place where people can look to see what you're up to? Where's the best place to do that?
I think just my IMDb page. I'm not like fully like in the social media. I have an Instagram page, but it's more just about photography. So
right. We'll check you out on IMDb. Great. And that just so you know, when you Google them, you're going to find all these really great videos, because I've been spending a lot of time with you online before, just doing more deep dive research.
Well, thank you.
There you go. So welcome to LA. Thank you so much for joining us for the program today. It means a lot to me to have you share your individual experience inside of this, and just hoping this just inspires a bunch of actors who are listening. Thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for listening, everybody. And thank you, Brian. It's been it's just a pleasure to get to talk to you one-on-one, especially after all this. So.
Good. Thanks.